The next few days passed in a blur for Nathan and Zara. They spent most of their time in their private quarters preparing for the next council meeting. Zara had become more determined with each passing hour. She knew the council would not stop, mocking her until they understood the true depth of her power. But she also knew that revealing it could put both her and humanity at risk. For now, she would have to be careful. Nathan watched her as she moved through their quarters, her steps graceful yet filled with purpose. He could see the storm of thoughts. In her eyes, the weight of everything pressing down on her shoulders. She was preparing, not just for the council's scrutiny, but for something much larger. Zara wasn't just fighting for her reputation. She was fighting for humanity's place in the galaxy. "Zara," Nathan said one evening, as they sat across from each other at a table covered with maps of the galaxy. "Are you sure about this? Revealing your power to the council? It could change everything." Zara looked up at him, her dark eyes filled with an intense resolve. "I have to, Nathan. If I don't, they will never take humanity seriously. They will never see us as anything more than a species too small to matter. I'm doing this for our future." Nathan leaned forward, his face serious. "I know you're doing this for us, for humanity, but I don't want you to be in danger." Zara smiled gently at him, reaching across the table to take his hand. "I've been in danger my whole life, Nathan. From the moment I was born, my bloodline has been a target. But I can't let fear stop me now. This is bigger than us." Nathan nodded, squeezing her hand in return. He admired her strength, but he also feared for her. He knew how the galaxy worked. They were all too quick to fear what they didn't understand. Zara's true power was something no one could comprehend, and once they knew, it could make her a target for those who sought to control it. The day of the next council meeting arrived. The air was thick with tension as Nathan and Zara entered the grand hall. Council members who had once mocked her were now watching her closely. Zara could feel their eyes on her, but this time, she stood taller. She had made her decision. There would be no more hiding. As they took their seats at the council table, Zara noticed that the room was quieter than usual. The usual jeering and whispers were gone. It seemed that the council members were waiting for something, unsure of what to expect. Zara knew they were nervous, but she remained calm. King Zalvar, Zara's father, was seated at the head of the table. His expression was unreadable, but Zara could see the slight tension in his posture. He had always been protective of her, but even he knew that this was her moment. She had to prove herself. The council began with the usual discussions, focusing on matters of galactic trade, defense, and diplomacy. But Zara could feel the unease growing with each passing minute. She could sense the underlying fear in the room. The council was waiting for her to make a move, but she wasn't going to reveal anything just yet. For now, she would wait. It wasn't until the council moved on to a new topic, the defense strategy against the growing threat of a mysterious alien race, that Zara knew the time had come. The council had been struggling to come up with a solution, and their plans had been failing miserably. Zara knew the galaxy's leaders were afraid. But it wasn't fear of the aliens that concerned her, it was their inability to think outside their limited views. Zara stood up, her movements slow and deliberate. The room fell silent as all eyes turned toward her. Nathan watched her closely, his heart pounding. He knew she had made the decision to speak, but he didn't know what she was about to say. "I have a suggestion," Zara said, her voice steady and clear. The council members exchanged uncertain glances. This was the moment that would define everything. Zara's plan had to be perfect. "We've been thinking too small," she continued. "This alien race is unlike anything we've faced before. They don't play by our rules. If we want to defeat them, we need to understand them. We need to think like they do." The council murmured, some nodding in agreement, while others remained skeptical. Zara could see their doubt, but she also saw the spark of curiosity in their eyes. For the first time, they were listening to her. "There's more to warfare than just weapons and armies," Zara added. "It's about strategy. It's about the ability to anticipate your enemy's next move, and I know how we can do that." She paused, looking around the room. The council members were no longer mocking her, but instead watching her with growing interest. I've studied their patterns, Zara continued. I've studied their movements, their technology, and their history. We can't defeat them with brute force alone. But we can use their own tactics against them. We can turn their strengths into their weaknesses. The room fell into stunned silence. Zara's words were bold, but they were also exactly what the council needed to hear. Nathan could see the shift in their expressions. They were no longer dismissing her. They were realizing that she wasn't just some ugly princess. She was a strategist, a leader, and someone they could no longer afford to ignore. As Zara finished her plan, the council began to discuss the details. Nathan watched with pride as Zara's ideas took shape. Her knowledge, her insight, and her power were undeniable. The mockery that had once surrounded her was now replaced by respect. But Zara wasn't done yet. She knew that this was only the beginning. The council would have to realize that humanity, her husband, her people, and herself wasn't something to be underestimated. Zara looked at Nathan, her eyes filled with determination. She had proven herself today, but this was only the first step in showing the galaxy what humans and their allies were truly capable of. Nathan stood in the vast council hall, his hands clenched at his sides as he listened to the laughter echoing from the galaxy's most powerful beings. The Galactic Council was an assembly of alien leaders, each representing different species. From across the stars, they had gathered to discuss a new galactic treaty, but all eyes were on one human, Nathan. He had just married Zara, the daughter of King Zalvar, ruler of a distant alien empire. Zara, with her strange features and unique beauty, had long been the subject of whispers in the galactic court. Her face, though kind and gentle, was often called ugly by some of the council members. Her eyes, too large and too dark, gave her an almost haunting look. Her skin, a pale shade of blue, shimmered faintly in the light, and her hair was unlike anything they had seen, silvery and ethereal. The mockery started the moment. Nathan stepped into the hall with Zara as the two walked down the long corridor. Leading to the meeting room, the alien leaders couldn't help but stare and whisper. Nathan could feel their eyes on him, their judgment hanging in the air. Why would a human choose her? One of the council members muttered, his voice dripping. With sarcasm, yes, another chimed in. The king's daughter is, well, let's say unconventional. It's hard to believe anyone would fall in love with her, especially a human. Their laughter was barely hidden, and Nathan's face flushed with anger. But he held his head high and refused to let their words touch him. He had always known what they thought of humans: weak, primitive, and unworthy of the galaxy's respect. But nothing mattered more to Nathan than Zara. Zara's beauty to him was unparalleled. The first time he had met her, he had been struck not by her appearance, but by her intellect and kindness. Zara was unlike any other alien he had encountered. She was wise, thoughtful, and full of strength, qualities that far outweighed the superficial judgments of others. Yet the council members didn't see it that way. As they gathered in their seats, they couldn't help but comment on her appearance. I can't believe the king agreed to this union, said a reptilian delegate, his scales shimmering as he spoke. Is it true that she is the last of her line? The question was directed at Zara's father, King Zalvar, who had been sitting silently beside his daughter. The king's reputation had taken a blow due to this marriage, and he knew it. Though the king was known for his power and influence, even he had a hard time silencing the council's judgment. Zara is my daughter, King Zalvar replied, his voice steady, but filled with a hint of anger. She is more than you realize. The council fell silent for a moment, but the murmurs soon started again. Nathan placed a gentle hand on Zara's arm, his touch comforting. She had always been quiet about the mockery, never letting it show that the words hurt. But Nathan knew better. He could see the slight sadness in her eyes every time the council laughed or whispered. It tore at him to know that the woman he loved had to endure this. Enough, Nathan said, his voice firm as he stood before the council. If you have no better words to say, I suggest we move forward with the discussion. The council was used to hearing humans speak in fear or submission, but Nathan wasn't like the others. He stood tall, facing them with confidence, not allowing their mockery to affect him. One of the council members, a tall, insect-like being with multiple eyes, raised his hand. "We shall proceed," he said, "but we will speak of this marriage later. For now, the Galactic Treaty must be discussed." With that, the council began to move on to the business at hand. But Nathan couldn't shake the feeling that the mockery wasn't over. He could feel the eyes of the council members on him and Zara, their silent judgment more oppressive than ever. As the meeting continued, Nathan's thoughts kept drifting back to Zara. He remembered the first time he had seen her standing alone, in the royal gardens, looking out at the stars. She had been lost in thought, unaware of his presence. When she turned and saw him, she had smiled softly, her large eyes lighting up as she greeted him. "You're different from the others," she had said to him that day. "Don't look at me like I'm a mistake." Nathan had been taken aback, unsure of how to respond. But her words had stayed with him. Unlike the others, he had never seen her as anything but beautiful. To him, Zara's appearance was unique, and it was a reflection of the strength she held inside.
Now, as the council continued to talk about treaties and alliances, Zara sat beside him, her head held high. Though the mocking words stung, she never
let it show. To Nathan, that made her even more beautiful. The council's laughter had died down, but the judgment remained. Nathan could tell that Zara was holding her own, but he also knew that the day would come when her secret would no longer be hidden. The galaxy would see what she was capable of, and when they did, their mockery would turn to awe. Nathan only hoped it would be soon, because Zara, the so-called ugly princess, held the key to a power the council could never imagine. As the meeting drew to a close, the council members began to leave the room, still whispering among themselves. But now, Nathan could see the looks of uncertainty in their eyes. The time would come when they would have to realize that they had misjudged Zara and humanity more than they could ever understand. As the meeting came to a close, the council members began to disperse, their chatter still hanging in the air. The once loud voices had softened, but their eyes remained sharp, full of judgment. Nathan could feel their eyes on him and Zara still. Lingering as they made their way to the exit, Zara walked beside him, her posture perfect, but Nathan could tell she was feeling the weight of their stares. Her silence spoke volumes. He wished he could do more to make her feel at ease, but there was little he could do to change the minds of the council members. The damage was done, and their mocking whispers had already stung. "Are you all right?" Nathan asked as they entered the corridor. His voice was quiet, careful, so that only Zara could hear. Zara turned her head to look at him, her large dark eyes meeting his. There was no anger or bitterness in her gaze, only a calm acceptance. She had grown used to the mockery over the years. As the king's daughter, she had learned to bear the weight of her father's crown, as well as the harsh judgments that came with it. "I'm fine," she replied, her voice soft. "It's just how it is, Nathan. The council will never change. They're blinded by their own arrogance." Gata nodded, his hand gently resting on her arm. He knew Zara's strength better than anyone. She had faced this her whole life, being judged not for her heart, her mind, or her actions, but simply for how she looked. It was frustrating to him, but he also knew that one day Zara would have the chance to show them all that they had underestimated her. As the couple walked through the halls of the council building, they passed various alien leaders who eyed them curiously, but said nothing. Nathan felt the weight of their stares, and though he did not show it, he felt a growing frustration. How could they mock Zara when they didn't understand the depth of her capabilities? Later that evening, as Nathan and Zara retired to their private quarters, he took a seat beside her at the large window overlooking the alien planet. The planet's twin moons shone brightly, casting soft light over the landscape. Zara sat beside him, her gaze lost in the beauty of the view. But Nathan knew her thoughts were elsewhere, consumed by the events of the day. "I don't care what they think," Nathan said, trying to lift her spirits. "I married you because I love you, Zara, not because of what the council or anyone else thinks." Zara smiled at him, a soft, genuine smile that always made his heart skip a beat. "I know," she said quietly. "That means more to me than you can imagine. But this is not about what the council thinks of me. It's about proving them wrong." Nathan raised an eyebrow, surprised. "Proving them wrong? But how?" Zara leaned back in her chair, her fingers lightly tracing the edge of the window. "They think I'm weak, Nathan. They think I'm a mistake. But they don't know the truth. They don't know what I am capable of." Nathan listened closely, intrigued by her words. He knew Zara had always been more than what she appeared. She was intelligent, resourceful, and a natural leader. But there was something more, something deeper that even he hadn't fully understood. "What do you mean?" he asked, his voice filled with curiosity. Zara turned her gaze to meet his, her eyes glowing with a quiet fire. "I come from a long line of ancient beings. My bloodline carries power, Nathan. Power that the galaxy has forgotten. Power that even the council doesn't understand." Nathan was taken aback. He had always known there was something unique about Zara, but hearing her speak of her heritage like this was a revelation. "Power? What kind of power?" Zara hesitated, her eyes darkening with a mix of sorrow and determination. "The power to control the energy that flows through the universe. The power to shape reality itself." Nathan's breath caught in his throat. The idea seemed impossible, yet there was something in Zara's tone that made him believe her. She was not someone to make empty claims? "But why didn't you tell anyone?" he asked. Still in awe, Zara lowered her gaze, her fingers gently playing with the fabric of her dress. "Because no one would have believed me. Because it would have made me a target. My bloodline has been hunted for centuries, Nathan. People fear what they don't understand." Nathan felt a surge of protective anger. He could hardly believe the council's treatment of Zara when they had no idea of her true power. If they only knew, they would not mock her, they would fear. "Her, Zara," Nathan began, his voice filled with resolve. "You don't have to hide who you are. You don't have to prove anything to them. I've seen who you are. You don't need their approval." Zara smiled softly at him, her hand reaching out to gently squeeze his. "Thank you, Nathan. But I must prove it to them. It's not for their approval. But for the future of our people. If they continue to see me as weak, they will never see humanity's true strength." Nathan understood now. Zara wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for humanity. She had always believed that humans had untapped potential, and now she had the chance to show the galaxy. It's just what they were capable of. "We'll show them," Nathan said with a smile. "Together." Zara's expression softened, and for the first time that evening, the weight of the council's mockery seemed to lift from her shoulders. She knew that Nathan would always stand by her side, and with him. She would face whatever challenges the galaxy had in store, as they sat together in silence. Staring out at the twin moons, Zara's mind began to race with the possibilities. The council may have mocked her for now, but she knew that one day, the galaxy would learn what it truly meant to underestimate her hand humanity, and when that day came, the council's laughter would turn to fear. The following days were filled with discussions. Zara's plan, which had once seemed impossible, was slowly beginning to take shape. The council, though still skeptical, couldn't ignore her brilliance. For the first time, they were listening, and Zara knew that this was her chance to prove herself in humanity. She had shown them that there was more to her than her appearance. It's more to her than just being the ugly daughter of a powerful king. Nathan could see the change in her. She had always been strong, but now there was a new spark in her eyes. Zara was determined not only to save the galaxy, but to make sure humanity stood at the forefront of that future. The council had given Zara a chance to present her strategy in full. It wasn't easy, especially with the constant undercurrent of doubt that still surrounded her. But Zara wasn't one to back down. She had spent nights studying the enemy's patterns, researching their history, and learning their language. She had been preparing for this moment for her entire life. Now, it was time to take the final step. On the day of the presentation, Zara stood in front of the council, her heart pounding. Nathan was sitting beside her, offering quiet support, his hand resting gently on hers. The room was filled with the most powerful beings in the galaxy, each with their own agenda, each with their own opinions. But Zara wasn't intimidated. She knew what she had to do, The council room, a massive hall lined with holographic screens and alien technology, was unusually quiet. Even the most vocal of the council members, who had once openly mocked Zara, were now silent. The tension was thick in the air as Zara stepped forward. "I know that many of you still doubt me," Zara began, her voice calm and clear. "You've mocked me for my appearance. You've questioned my worth. But today, I am here to prove to you that my ideas, my strength, and my loyalty to humanity are something you cannot afford to ignore." The council members exchanged uneasy glances. The usual jeering was gone. They were starting to see Zara in a new light, and it unsettled them. She was no longer just the daughter of a king. She was someone who had the potential to change the course of history. "I have spent weeks studying the alien threat we face," Zara continued. "I've seen the flaws in our current strategy. We can't win this war with force alone. We need to outthink them, outmaneuver them." Her words struck a chord with the council. They had never heard a plan like this before. Zara wasn't offering empty promises. She was offering a solution that challenged everything the council had believed. "I've learned how their minds work," Zara said. "They are not like us. They are a race that thrives on chaos. But chaos can be controlled. We can use their own tactics against them. We can create the illusion of weakness, then strike when they least expect it." Nathan watched as the council members leaned forward, intrigued by Zara's words. She was speaking their language now, the language of strategy, of power. The mockery that had once surrounded her was slipping away, replaced by something more powerful. "Respect. I propose that we create a false flag operation," Zara continued. "We will make the enemy think we are vulnerable, that we are divided. We will send out false signals, make them believe we are retreating. They will take the bait, and when they do, we will strike back with everything we have. It will be a decisive blow that will make them think twice about ever attacking us again." A murmur spread through the council. Zara's plan was bold and it was risky, but it was also brilliant. It was exactly the kind of thinking the council had been missing. They had been too focused on brute strength, too willing to throw everything. They had at the enemy without considering the bigger picture. "You think this will work?" asked one of the council members, his voice laced with skepticism. He was a tall, muscular alien, his body covered in thick armor. His species had always relied on sheer power, and he didn't like the idea of using trickery over strength. Zara didn't flinch. She stood tall, her eyes never leaving his. "It will work, but only if we trust it. We can't afford to let fear guide our decisions. The enemy is smart, but we can be smarter. We have to think beyond our usual methods. This is the only way to win." For a moment, there was silence. The council members exchanged looks and Nathan could sense their hesitation. They were scared. Not of Zara, but of the unknown. The idea of using deception as a weapon was something none of them had considered. But Zara was right. It was their only hope. The council's chief diplomat, a slender alien with translucent skin, spoke up. "I admit your plan is ... unconventional, but it could work. We've tried everything else, and we are no closer to a solution." Zara's heart raced, but she didn't let it show. This was it. This was the moment when everything would change. "We need to act now," Zara said, her voice strong. "We can't wait any longer. The enemy is close, and every moment we hesitate, they grow stronger." The room was quiet for a long time. Then, one by one, the council members began to nod. The atmosphere had shifted completely. Zara had gone. From being an object of mockery to a respected leader, the council could no longer ignore her. "We will give your plan a chance," the chief diplomat said. "But know this, Zara, if this fails, we will hold you responsible." Zara's face softened with a small smile. "I understand, but I won't fail." This is the beginning of a new era for humanity in the galaxy. As the council members agreed to move forward with her plan, Nathan felt a surge of pride. Zara had done it. She had shown the galaxy what humans were capable of. But he knew this was only the beginning. The true test was yet to come. Zara and Nathan left the council chamber together, the weight of their victory settling over them. Zara had proven her worth, but now they would face the real challenge, executing the plan. the galaxy had underestimated humanity before, but now, the real power was in their hands. The days following the Council's agreement to Zara's plan were tense, but filled with anticipation. Zara and Nathan had spent countless hours preparing, finalizing every detail. The Council had been more than willing to give her plan a chance, but now the pressure was on. If Zara's strategy failed, Humanidan Zara herself would pay the price. Nathan could feel the weight of the upcoming battle on his shoulders. But every time he looked at Zara, he saw the determination in her eyes. She wasn't just fighting for herself, she was fighting for humanity, for the future. And Nathan knew that there was no one more capable than Zara to lead them through. The storm, the first step of the plan, was deceptively simple. Zara had ordered that false signals be sent out across the galaxy. They would create the illusion that Earth's forces were scattered, vulnerable, and on the brink of retreat. It was risky, but it was the only way to lure the enemy in. The enemy had been growing stronger, and they had underestimated humanity's ability to fight back. Zara knew they would take the bait, and when they did, they would be met with a fierce and unexpected counterattack. As the days passed, the tension continued to rise. Every time Zara walked into the council chamber, she could feel the council members watching her, waiting for the moment when they would either celebrate or condemn her. There was no middle ground. Nathan stood by her side, offering silent support. But even he couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the edge of something much larger than either of them could comprehend. The day of the operation arrived. Zara stood at the command center, her fingers lightly tapping against the table as she studied the holographic displays in front of her. Nathan was beside her, watching as the team worked quickly, ready to carry out the plan. "We're in position," one of the officers said. Zara nodded, her gaze steady. "Send the signals," she commanded, her voice firm and confident. The officer tapped a few commands into the system, and Zara watched as the holographic display flickered. The false signals were now being broadcast across the galaxy. The enemy would believe Earth was vulnerable, unprepared. And as they moved in to strike, they would fall right into Zara's trap. The first few hours were nerve-wracking. Happened. Zara felt her heart race with anxiety, but she held her ground. Nathan, sensing her worry, placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "They'll take the bait," he said quietly. "They have to," Zara nodded, but deep down she wasn't so sure. The enemy had always been unpredictable, and this plan was a gamble. But Zara was a strategist, and her instincts told her this was their best shot. They couldn't win with force alone. They needed something else. And for once, the galaxy's leaders were finally starting to see that. Then, just as Zara was starting to wonder if she had miscalculated, the alert system blared. Her heart skipped a beat as the officer at the console turned to her, his eyes wide with excitement. "They've taken the bait," he said. "The enemy is moving in. They think we're retreating." Zara's lips curled into a small smile. This was it. The trap had been set, and now they would spring it. Zara had carefully calculated every move, every response. She knew the enemy would be overconfident, thinking they had won before the real battle even began. "Prepare the counterattack," Zara said, her voice steady. "We've got one chance at this." The command center was a whirlwind of activity as the fleets, ships, were readied for battle. Zara watched with a calm intensity as the officers followed her instructions. She could feel the gravity of the moment pressing down on her, but she knew that there was no turning back. The plan had to succeed. There was no room for failure. Minutes later, the enemy fleet appeared on the radar. They were moving fast, sure that they would destroy Earth's forces with minimal resistance. But what they didn't know was that the Earth fleet had been waiting for this moment. Zara had already deployed her forces in key locations, and the enemy was about to walk right into their trap. As the first enemy ships entered range, Zara gave the command, "Launch the counterattack." Skies lit up with the blinding flash of weapons fire. The Earth fleet, hidden in the shadows, emerged from their positions, surrounding the enemy ships in a calculated pincer move. The enemy had no idea what hit them. They had been so certain of their victory that they never saw the attack coming. For hours, the battle raged on. Zara watched the display, her face tense but focused. The Earth fleet, guided by her strategy, moved with precision. It didn't waste energy, didn't make mistakes. Every move was part of the plan. Every shot aimed at disabling the enemy's ships without causing unnecessary destruction. Nathan stood beside her. Amazed by her ability to remain so calm under pressure, I had always known that Zara was capable. But seeing her in action like this made him realize just how much she had been holding back. She was more than just a brilliant strategist. She was a leader, someone who could bring hope to a galaxy that had forgotten what it meant to truly fight for something. As the final enemy ships were destroyed or forced into retreat, Zara allowed herself a moment of relief. The plan had worked. They had won. But the victory wasn't just about defeating the enemy. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity was no longer a species to be mocked. The council members, who had once laughed at Zara, now stood in awe. They had seen the power of her strategy, and they understood now that she had more to offer than they had ever imagined. Zara turned to Nathan, her eyes shining with pride. "We did it," she said quietly, her voice filled with emotion. Nathan smiled, pulling her into a tight embrace. We did it together. The galaxy had been changed in that moment. Zara had proven herself to the council, to the galaxy, and to the universe. The mockery had turned to respect, and humanity had shown that they were more than capable of standing shoulder to shoulder with the most powerful species in the galaxy. As the council began to discuss the aftermath of the battle, Zara's mind raced with the possibilities. This victory was just the beginning. She had proven humanity's strength, but the road ahead would not be easy. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate the power of humanity. The aftermath of the battle left the galaxy buzzing with excitement and fear. Zara's plan had worked beyond anyone's expectations. The enemy, once confident in their victory, was now retreating. Earth's forces, under Zara's leadership, had defeated them with a precision and strategy that no one had seen coming. Zara stood in the command center, watching the fleet's status updates as they continued to disable the remaining enemy ships. Nathan stood beside her, his eyes full of admiration. He had always known Zara was capable, but seeing her lead a successful campaign like this was something entirely different. She was more than just the daughter of a king. She was a force to be reckoned with. "They're retreating," one of the officers said, his voice filled with relief. "It's over." Zara nodded, her face a mask of calm. But inside she felt a quiet sense of triumph. This victory wasn't just about defeating the enemy. It was about proving to the galaxy that humanity was more than the weak, primitive species they had always believed them to be. As the final enemy ships jumped to faster than light speeds, Zara turned to Nathan. "We've done it. This is the first step." Nathan smiled, squeezing her hand. "And we'll keep going, together." The news of Earth's victory spread quickly across the galaxy. The council, once so quick to mock Zara and her marriage to Nathan, now had no choice but to acknowledge her brilliance. They had underestimated humanity, and Zara's success had forced them to confront the truth. Humanity was no longer just a side player in the galaxy's politics. They were a power to be reckoned with. The next council meeting was tense. Zara knew that the council would no longer treat her as a mere daughter of a king. They would treat her as a leader, someone with power and influence. But she also knew that this newfound respect came with its own challenges. There would be those who would try to tear her down, who would never truly accept the shift in the galaxy's power dynamics. Zara and Nathan entered the council chamber side by side. The room was filled with the galaxy's most powerful beings, each of them watching as Zara took her place at the table. The once mocking eyes that followed her every move now looked at her with a mixture of awe and wariness. They had seen her power, and they knew that she could no longer be ignored. King Zelvar, who had been proud of his daughter's victory, sat next to her. The tension in the room was palpable as the council members settled into their seats. Zara could feel their eyes on her, but she didn't flinch. This was her moment, and she wasn't going to back down. "Zara, Al." The chief diplomat of the council spoke, his voice calm but filled with a new respect. you have proven yourself today. Your strategy was nothing short of brilliant. The galaxy owes you a debt of gratitude. Zara met his gaze, her eyes steady. This victory wasn't just mine. It was humanity's victory. We did this together. The council members nodded, some of them exchanging glances. They had heard the name of humanity whispered in awe, but now they understood what it truly meant. Earth's forces had demonstrated the kind of strength and unity that could not be ignored. Humanity was no longer a species to be underestimated. You've changed the course of this war, the chief diplomat continued, and you've shown the galaxy that humanity is capable of so much more than we ever gave you credit for. Zara didn't respond immediately. She had spent years watching the galaxy underestimate her, watching them mock her and Nathan, and now she was finally being acknowledged. But she knew that this was only the beginning. This victory had opened doors. But the real challenge would come in the days ahead. I don't want gratitude, Zara said, her voice steady. I want humanity to have a seat at the table. I want us to be recognized as a power that can change the galaxy, not just as a species to be dismissed or ignored. The council fell silent for a moment, and Zara could feel the weight of her words settle in. She wasn't just asking for recognition, she was demanding it. She was making it clear that humanity would no longer be treated as an afterthought. Of course, said the chief diplomat, his tone now one of genuine respect. You've earned that right and more. The meeting continued, but Zara could tell that things had changed. The council members who had once mocked her now deferred to her opinions. They asked for her advice on strategy and diplomacy. Zara knew that the path ahead would be filled with challenges, but for the first time, she felt confident that humanity was finally on the path to greatness. As the meeting drew to a close, Zara and Nathan walked out of the council chamber together. There was no laughter now, no whispers behind their backs. The galaxy had seen what they were capable of, and they had no choice but to respect them. Do you think they've learned their lesson? Nathan asked, his voice filled with curiosity. Zara smiled, her gaze steady. I think they're starting to understand. But this is just the beginning. We've proven ourselves once, but we'll have to prove it again and again. Nathan nodded. He had always known Zara was capable of great things, but now the galaxy knew it too. Humanity had finally found its place among the stars, and Zara had been the one to lead them there. But Zara wasn't done yet. There was still much work to be done, and she knew that the galaxy was watching. The galaxy will change because of us, Zara said quietly. But we can't stop now. This is only the start of what we can do. Nathan looked at her, admiration in his eyes. And we'll face it together. Zara smiled, her heart swelling with pride. She had proven her worth, but the true journey had just begun. Together, they would show the galaxy what humanity could do.